All right. Can everyone in the chat hear me nice and clearly? Just let me know. Give me a heads up. Beautiful. Outstanding. So there's quite a few interesting things happening in the market at the moment. Um, Bitcoin has been pretty choppy during this whole ordeal. So it's kind of about the last 4 weeks we've been sitting within this range here. We recently had this 5 wave impulsive move, right? So the Elliott wave, first wave, second wave on the retracement, third wave, fourth wave being the pullback, and then the fifth wave. And this is kind of like a blow off top or more of an extended wave for this. Generally, with Elliott wave theory, the third wave is often the longest. It doesn't have to be, but it can't be the shortest. And quite often what you see with like blow off top moves is you generally see the extended fifth wave, which is kind of what you've got going on here at the moment. We had this nice double top at a key level of resistance, and you can see that during that double top, we actually failed to recapture the previous candle close high of that first peak there. And the closing of this first white candle actually closed, the closing of that first white candle is level with the opening of that second gray candle there. So you've kind of got that tweezer top formation with that very strong bearish engulfing as well. You will quite often see that sort of structure or that sort of candlestick structure when you're leaning towards printing any sort of double top. And on the flip side of that, any sort of double bottom formation, you'll generally start to see candlestick structure. Geez, that was a mouthful. Candlestick structure like this. So you get your shooting star formation with your hammer head in there, and then you'll get that bearish engulfing as well. But those two candles being sort of equal highs there on the open and the close is also quite a strong bearish signal. And then these two candles on the second peak, having done the same thing, but failed to recapture these candle close highs here, also showing weakness, which points to a trend reversal starting to take effect. Who we got in the chat? Jana Dungy Gold Digger. Haha. Lovely. So everyone wants to look at XRP. I've seen lots of people talking about XRP on social media. I know that Matthew Stella and Dungy actually had a really good chart on XRP. I know Dungy shared his on our Sunday support session. Very nice head and shoulders pattern. And then I know that Matthew Stella as well presented that on his Monday market scan as well. So a lot of people are looking at XRP. It's been finally doing something during this cycle. It's done nothing for years. It used to be a big mover and then just did a whole lot of nothing. And then we just started to see XRP go back to its roots and absolutely send it. And now we're finally seeing a little bit of a correction starting to potentially take form as well. So when XRP wants to move, it definitely does move. Yeah, real nice head and shoulders on that. So yeah, we can take a look at that. I'll finish up this analysis on Bitcoin. We'll go a little bit deeper, and then I want to get your guys' thoughts on where you think Bitcoin's going to head to from here. So whether you're bullish, you're bearish, you're still on the fence, maybe think we're going to continue to consolidate for a little bit. It'd be nice to get everyone's perspective on that as well. All right. So again, we've got that head and shoulders pattern. It's played out. Sorry, that double top pattern has played out. We've got the breakout of that key level of support. So here's your neckline across here. And then we've got that strong breakout. So this pink candle here, or purple candle, whatever you want to call it, shows an increase of volume on that move. And a lot of people were saying that with this particular move here, this candle wick, a lot of people saw that as the fake out. People were expecting some sort of Wyckoff accumulation, and they thought this was the fake out for the spring. And once we shot up and we actually closed back within that support range, a lot of people were expecting that we're going to start pumping from there. Now, it was pretty easy to identify that this was not a genuine move this spring and this wick to the downside. And the reason for that is if we look on like the lowering timeframes, we can see that the volume wasn't actually supporting the move. So even though price was shooting back up, back into within this range, the volume was actually failing to recapture those previous highs. So that gives us an indication that the move is not being shared by the wider majority of the market, and it increases the probability of a reversal. So that is pretty much exactly what we saw. And the reason we often see those sort of plays play out is the big players, the institutions, and a lot of the whales, they can't unload their bags all at once because it'll drastically affect the price of the asset in the market. So what they need to do is they need to scale out of their positions. So they'll often trick the market into going the other way against them so that then they can start unloading their bags on them, which is why we've seen this big dump that followed through here. The breakout target for this double top, which we measure from the neckline to the top of the highest peak. I generally do it from the structure. We can see that that breakout target has actually been met. So if I move that down to there, it's pretty much been met. And that breakout target area, the target for that also aligned with our trend-based fib extension of the 0.5 fib. So you can see how those levels sort of start to stack up. And currently we are resting on that golden fib level, which is the 0.618 Fibonacci level. Down to 72K and then to the moon. Yeah, I would love to see Bitcoin go down to 72K, to be honest. I think it would definitely show a lot of strength, right? This is the previous all-time high. We struggled to get through there. We consolidated down in a descending wedge sort of formation. We broke above, but we're yet to come back to actually retest this level as support. And for Bitcoin to actually come back to that level, back test it and hold a support would show a lot of strength in the market. We have actually completed our A, B, C corrective wave. So there is the possibility that from here we could start to move into another impulsive move. However, we just need to wait for more data to sort of unfold. We don't want to jump the gun and start putting in massive all-time high projections again. We just need to sit back, wait for the confirmations, take the market in chunks, and take the data as it sort of unfolds bit by bit. So 72K could definitely be on the cards. It also align sort of within the range of the 0.382 level. So yeah, it's definitely on the cards if we fail to recapture the 0.786. There is the possibility that in the sort of shorter term, we could come up, we could back test that neckline and then come down for another leg down. So those are the two sort of outcomes that we're looking for now. We're looking for that retest of resistance at 0.786, or we're looking to potentially come down to the 0.382 level. So zooming in on that, let's just have a look. So that was a weekly time frame. We'll have a little look at the daily. Now the daily isn't actually looking too bad. We kind of had this ascending wedge sort of pattern, not quite a flag in my opinion. The flagpole isn't really long enough because that's your impulsive move from this grey candle here. And the flag is retraced almost the same length. I would call this more of a rising wedge. We have broken below, but at the moment we are potentially putting in that higher low and holding at that level. So what I'm watching for very, very closely is, do we get this daily close as a bullish engulfing like it's looking now? And then from there, do we push up to put it in a bit of a W formation? Okay. Targeting the next key level of resistance is obviously this zone here. Let me just turn that off. Targeting this zone here, which is also our 0.786 Fibonacci level. Whoops. Did anyone get a trade off of this ascending wedge pattern? Let me know in the chat. I did see a lot of people charting this up. No, nobody got a trade on there, and that's cool. I tend to miss all the good trades. I'll set my alerts and then they'll go off while I'm asleep or something, so I'll miss out on the good trades. But if you were to trade this ascending wedge formation, it would have been a very, very nice setup for you because, as you can see, you were getting consecutive lower highs and lower lows. And for me, my entry point would have been breaking this key support level, broke below, got that little retest and come down from there. I prefer to see breaks in key horizontal levels as opposed to just breaks in trend lines, because quite often what you can see is price will actually break outside of that trend line and it might come down to, say, a key support level like this one and then just bounce straight back up and invalidate that break out of the trend. So a break in trend does not necessarily constitute a trend change. We need to see the break in trend. We need to see the break in the change in market structure, and we need to see a break in key levels of support or local levels of horizontal support or resistance. Another good entry point would have been somewhere here. So there's a bit of a support zone here. That could have been a really good entry point as well. You see, we got that impulsive move, good volume on the candle, drop below that trend line. Oh yeah, Dungy got in. Yeah, got a nice trade on there. Closed out early. Got in at 86. Yeah. So pretty much right where we were just speaking about. So if you got in here, bloody awesome. I think entering like anywhere above that sort of area there would have been considered high risk. The reason for that is, even though price is trending upwards and we've got this rising wedge pattern, which generally results in a break to the downside, you still potentially have this like flag formation starting to fall. So waiting for that actual break in support would have been a much better short, in my opinion. Even though we did sort of have that double top, but you'll quite often see with flag formations, you'll get consecutive lower highs and lower lows. Jana said, I also closed out early. Hey, closing out early is all good. I would rather close out early and get a little bit of something than a whole lot of nothing. I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of traders is they're looking for the golden goose or the moonshot, and they hold positions for too long. And if you hold positions long enough and they keep going in your favor, most people are going to get greedy. We're all human, and most of us are going to succumb to greed at some point. So you're better off to take your profit when it presents itself. Stick to your trade plan and just get in and get out. Too many people try to hold trades for much too long, and then they end up actually getting no profit from it. I know because I've done it many times myself. I put on a trade. I check it before I go to bed. I go, yeah, I'm in really, really good profit. That's awesome. And then I wake up in the morning and it's just stopped short of my take profit and then come all the way back down and stop me out of my trade. So sometimes you just got to be happy with the profit that you get. So yeah, Bitcoin on the daily here, sorry, on the 1 hour here is actually not looking too bad. Who can tell me what this is? Head and shoulders. Yeah, head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders. So inverse head and shoulders, all we're looking for is changes the market structure, right? This is a very, very good example with this one here. What I like to see with any head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders is I like to see the right shoulder higher than the left shoulder to show that clear change in market structure. Not only that, but where the neckline starts on the left shoulder, I like to see the right shoulder neckline higher than that. So I want higher low here and I want higher high here. That's going to give me a much stronger conviction to this moving to the upside. So we can see here, and now we've actually got that neckline break. If we draw that as a horizontal level, we've actually broken above. And not only that, is we've got exactly what we want to see when we break a key level of support or resistance. We want to see volume supporting the move. This big green candle here shows an increase in volume. So looking really, really good for this inverse head and shoulders. The breakout target for this will draw from the bottom of the head to the neckline, and then take that up from the point of breakout. And you can see it kind of takes us to where our zone was around here, where we previously broke down from. So realistically, price is going to come back up to test around about this range here. The measured move for that. Yeah, it seems like we've got a little bit of lag in the chat. Oh, that's no good. Wonder if I can do something to fix that. Let me have a look shortly. Yeah, so this move here, we've got about 2.6% move. So 10x leverage, yeah, basically a 20% move. So for me, if I was going to take a trade setup like that, I would need to weigh up whether or not it fits my risk to reward ratio. So I might say I'm going to take my profit just short. I probably want to get my entry somewhere around here. And then I want to keep my stop loss just below previous structure, account for any maybe liquidity grabs, and then look to see what the risk to reward ratio is going to be. Ideally, I want to have at least a 2-to-1 risk to reward. A 3-to-1 is definitely better, but I don't really want to start adjusting my stop loss just to make the risk to reward ratio more attractive. Because that's when you start getting into trouble and you've got you're sort of more likely to what's the word, get stopped out if you start adjusting your stop loss to sort of suit the trade position. Will the recording be on YouTube? Yes, I hope so. This is the first time I've actually live streamed from Streamlabs. So I'm hoping it is recording and it does work, but I won't know until I end the stream. So yeah, if it works out all good, then there should be a recording and it should go on YouTube. But I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you in the loop. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I would look for my trade setup. Where price is now, I don't want to be getting in because price has moved up too high off the neckline. I want to see price come back, retest the point of breakout, and then hold. look for signs of strength, bullish candlestick formations at that level, and then I'll look to enter. And potentially even I may even choose to stagger my entries, have some break it up into maybe 2 or 3 smaller entries to average out my entry. Can also be a good way to do it as well. Now, I want to keep my targets pretty conservative here because there's no guarantee that the momentum is necessarily going to be maintained. But if I'm trading based off of this inverse head and shoulders, I want to make sure that I'm trading the target of that inverse head and shoulders. And I always like to keep my take profits just shy of where the next resistance level is, because sometimes we don't always reach that target completely. So nice resistance there. That's now support. So that's the sort of setup I'll be looking for. So while I wait for price to sort of come back, I'll just set my alerts. I'll set an alert there. Once the alert goes off, then I can review, start looking on the smaller time frames, maybe the 15-minute and the 5-minute, and then start looking for bullish candlestick formations and double bottoms to potentially enter into a position. So does everyone understand what I'm looking for when I'm looking for those trade setups and how I map out my trades? Yeah, beautiful. I think I know how to fix the lag in the chat, but I don't think it'll let me fix it while the stream is live, which is really upsetting. But these are the things we learn as we go, right? Okay, so yep, inverse head and shoulders looks good. And yeah, just waiting for that setup. Dana's looking good. We'll have a look at the momentum indicators on the daily too. We're kind of in that oversold region almost on the stochastic. The RSI is approaching sort of the 50 area, but you can see that the momentum is still trending upwards. So that's a good sign. On the weekly has bottomed out on the stochastic, and you can see that each time the weekly has started to bottom out, we generally start to get some sort of upwards move, except in this case where we just consolidated sideways for a bit. So that's also a possibility, but usually Bitcoin tends to get some sort of reaction or some sort of move eventually once it bottoms out on the stochastic. Yeah, change of structure. Beautiful. Okay, let's look at some of these charts that you guys have posted. Pendle. I've never heard of Pendle. What the hell is Pendle? Let's look at does it have a swap chart on? Oh yeah, there it is. I do have it. Interesting. So yeah, weekly just shows like this massive double top pattern, but we had broken below that neckline, and then immediately we started to put in this big evening star, and prices actually pushed back up above that neckline. So I wouldn't expect this to play out like a typical double top, and it wouldn't make much sense either, because if this was an actual double top, a breakout target from the neckline to the top of the pattern, and then we take that from the point of breakout, and then it's going to -2. So unless the coin's going to absolutely die, I would say that the probability of that happening is pretty slim. What's the other one? Yeah, bottomed out, double bottom on the stochastics, and that's really good. The other key thing to note here is this is our volume indicator, right? The OBV. So you can see here, the OBV stands for on balance volume. You can see that volume has been continuing to rise. Even though we've had these massive drawdowns, the volume didn't come down that much on that move. And it's been pretty much stagnated the entire time. So during this up move and during this down move, it's been very, very stagnated. So with the stochastic being at the bottom of the range, the RSI starting to come down to the bottom of the range, there could be potential for some sort of move upwards. Again, there was that morning star on the weekly. We've got another morning star just here, and we're essentially putting in a higher low. So if we look at that, we'll zoom out, put in some key support levels. Got to go watch it later. Hey, thanks for jumping on. Yeah, so we're sitting on support and we're holding. We've had a couple of liquidity grabs to the downside. But we are holding support quite well. And yeah, essentially putting in a bit of a double bottom here. Nice strength off that morning star because we got that volume. Yeah, change in structure. We've got a trend here. So if we get another push above this with good volume, we'll also have that next confirmation, which will be break and trend. So lots of bullish confirmations here. You got the weekly morning star. You've got the key level of daily support where we've touched multiple times. You've got the change in structure. So you got your higher low here. You've got another daily morning star with good volume. And now you're approaching a key level of resistance, trendline resistance. And if you break that with good volume, then you've got another confirmation, which could lead to a pretty good trade setup. One of my favorite entries with these morning stars as well is often you'll get a retracement of at least 50 to 60% of that bullish engulfing candle. And that's one of my favorite entries to get in if I can get in on that morning star when the structures changes. I try to get in on a 50 to 60% retracement of that candle. That particular entry in this instance, because we've got this trend line resistance right there, would be considered a little bit more high risk. The safer entry would be to enter once we actually break this horizontal zone. Where's my drone? Well, that one. So once we actually break above this resistance, break the trend line, and then catch the next move. So let me just draw that as a zone. All right. Yeah, so we're just waiting for that breakout. So again, one thing you can do as well is if you're waiting for an alert or you want to actually wait till price breaks out, when you set your alerts, there's a certain way that you can set it up. So I could go like this, click on the, actually, we'll put in a horizontal line. So if I put in a horizontal line, say here, and we'll pull that daily resistance. I can click on that, right click, go add alert. And then I can go, instead of crossing, I go crossing up and I go once per bar close. And what that'll do is that will alert me once we get a daily candle close above that level of resistance, because if I just had it set up to crossing and only once, it means that each time price hits or crosses over that level throughout that open candle, it's going to trigger my alert. Now, you can get wicks to the upside and fake outs and all those sorts of things, but if what I'm really looking for is candle closes outside of that range. So, and then I can just put daily, I can even put the asset would help. So I could go candle, daily resistance broken. And then now when that alert goes off, I know that I've got a candle close on the daily outside of that, and I can start looking for entry opportunities. Now let's just see, might chuck some fibs on here. So I'll do that, this little move here. So go from here to there. And you can see we're at 618, kind of lines up within this area here. Then we can see, do we have any structure to the left that kind of lines up with that range? And we do. If we zoom out and look left, we can see there's a bit of a resistance area here where price has been rejected multiple times. It's also acted as support. So you can see it kind of correlates with that general area. We can also do maybe a weekly fib as well. So if I chuck that there, go from the top down to the bottom. And we're just looking for levels of confluence at this stage. So levels where the fib clusters actually stack up with one another. So the 2-3 lines up with the top of our daily resistance zone. And the 382 is not far off from where the 618 is as well. We'll see where our daily order blocks line up. So we've got the massive order block up to the top, order block resistance. And, weekly resistance. And you can see the daily order block lines up with where we've put in our resistance zone as well. And the top of the 6180 fib. And then that weekly Fibonacci level lines up, the order block lines up with the 382. So you can see how these multiple fib clusters and these order blocks, as well as the support and resistance zones that we've put in, they're starting to stack up with one another. And that just gives us a little bit more confluency and stronger conviction that those are the levels that we need to keep an eye on. Let's have a look on the 4 hours, see what the 4 hours doing. Same again. The order blocks are right about the same sort of area. So we can switch those off now. Yeah, at the moment, it's looking really, really good. Again, just because we're at resistance at the moment, it's not really an ideal entry point. I would rather see a confirmed break, come back for a retest, and then trade up to the next key level. And then that's where I'll sort of start to plan out my trade. And then you might say, okay, well, if I'm going to put my stop loss there, that's only a 1.59. That might not be the best trade. However, if I'm going to trade that up to the top of the zone, up to the 6180, you can see it's at least a 2-to-1. I just need to be aware of, if I'm setting that as my overall target, I know that there is strong resistance here and that there is a probability that we're going to run into a bit of selling resistance at that level, which will increase the probability of price reversing. So just be mindful when you are setting your targets that you don't make them too optimistic. But you can see there is a lot of resistance around sort of within this area. If we're looking at this as a consolidation pattern, potential consolidation pattern. So say we put in our resistance at this level here. We're kind of at the very, very bottom of that range as far as the macro perspective goes. And you can see last time it bottomed out at this range, we put in a bit of a double bottom and then we started to rally towards the upside. Same with here. We put in a double bottom here. We put in a lower low in this instance, but when we see that, ideally we want to see the bullish divergence on the momentum indicators. Let's just get rid of that and that. And what else? Yeah, so it does look like we could potentially be about to see a little bit of reversal. If the market wants to play the game, we could potentially see price in the long term bounce up from this level and start to come towards the upside. And then we continue consolidating throughout this range. So from the macro perspective, snagging an entry at this level would be ideal. We just need to wait for that further confirmation that the structure is going to hold and that we're going to continue to print higher highs and higher lows. All right. Since it's looking at a double bottom on ETH. Okay. Yeah, we can take a quick look at that as well. We'll have a look at stop loss being set at a fib level or a market structure. It depends. The reason I've kind of got my stop loss where it is now in this instance is because if I'm going to enter once price breaks above and wait for the retest to come back, theoretically, if price gets anywhere lower than here and starts to break back down to the downside, I need to get out of the trade anyway, because it means that that trade setup has actually been invalidated. So a lot of people, and it can be safer to have your stop loss below previous structure, which would be down here. But because I'm looking for a break in structure and a retest before entering, if price actually re-enters down here and starts closing candles back down within this range, then it's invalidating my setup anyway. So I probably want to get out of that trade. Does that make sense? However, if I was going to take a trade from, say, like here or something, then I definitely want my stop loss to be below this previous structure and account for any potential wicks. In fact, I'd probably want my stop loss even just lower than just this structure here, because you can see there is a little bit of structure to the left-hand side. So I probably want to account for some of that and drop my stop loss just below the lowest wick. So I'd have something like that. The Hindle. Okay. Put a little alert there just in case. See what happens. Let's have a look at XRP. That. Hey, I remember that trade. It was a great trade. It was way back in 2021. How much was that? There's a 50% short. That's right. Beautiful. For the record, I had this charted up for a very, very, very long time. And I missed the trade. I missed the breakout. Yeah, so this particular setup here is looking very, very much like distribution. Typically, distribution happens after an impulsive move or a run to the upside, and then you get a bit of consolidation. Quite often you get some form of fake out, and then you get your Bart Simpson top, and then you get your large sell-off. At the moment, we're still continuing to print lower highs and lower lows, but we haven't quite put in that low just here yet. So we are waiting to see if price actually comes back down, puts in another lower low. But it is looking very much like a head and shoulders formation, especially on the weekly time frame tips. So you've kind of got a head and shoulders here. Is your head, is your shoulders. And you've also got a bit of a double top as well. So remember when I said typical with double tops, your first peak, quite often you'll get those candle open and closes at an equal level. You can also see that the wicks were getting shorter and shorter. No, I haven't. I haven't traded XRP in a very long time, actually. I shorted it here, and then I think I lost a couple of trades within here because I thought we were going to get a bounce and go to the moon off of this level, and then that didn't happen, and XRP basically did bugger all for the next 2-3 years. So yeah, with this double top, we equal highs on the open and close of those two candles, and then we had that bearish engulfing. The wicks were starting to get lower and lower, showing that the momentum is running out. And then on the second peak, same again, you got those equal open and close with that large bearish engulfing. And it looks like we've kind of come up to retest the neckline. So now we're waiting to see, do we come back down and start to close below? So what I would expect here, if we are going to go down, is we could potentially get a 50 to 60% retracement of this bearish engulfing candle up to the 382, and then start to roll over and come back down. Now, the invalidation of this head and shoulders would be if we started to come back up above this zone. That would pretty much invalidate it for me. It is still likely that this could just be that distribution setup. So even if you come up back above the 6180 and the 50, then it still could play out like a consolidation range. So you could still just have something like this. Where price just moves sideways for a little bit. It's not uncommon to see large impulsive moves followed by consolidation as well, and then followed by a large impulsive move again, especially if you're looking at like a 5-wave impulsive structure. So we just got to take the market in chunks, see what the data looks like as it unfolds, and then base our decision off of that. We don't necessarily want to get too caught up in like, oh yeah, this looks like it's head and shoulders, and then just wait for an entry and just jump in and hope for the best. We want to make sure that we're getting those confirmations, waiting for those confirmations before we jump in. The ideal entry for me would have been on the rejection of the 6180 fib. Also off of that neckline retest of that double top. So the ideal entry for me is past. If I'm looking to trade this as a head and shoulders, I'm looking at about 382 for signs of weakness. All right, beautiful. What else have we got? Hype. Okay, liquid. Okay. Swap. Potential double bottom printing there on the daily. We got a slight higher low. slight higher lows, so that's a good sign. The stochastic is bottomed out. There's no real bullish divergence again because we've got the higher lows, so you're probably not going to see bullish divergence. But you can see the momentum is starting to push to the upside. Not so much on the volume just yet. I would like to see volume step in at this level if this is going to be a bottom, and we haven't really seen that on the candles just yet. Yeah, no real significant volume spikes at that level or significant candles. We are topped out on the 4-hour stochastic, and you can see we're stagnated right across the bottom here. No significant moves in volume. And the RSI is just above the 50. So it looks like we could come back down. And then I'd be watching to see if we put in another higher low to start pushing off again. But ideally, when I see price approach a key level, I want to see volume start to step in. I want to see strong bullish engulfing candles, all those sorts of things to show that the buyers are holding that level strong. It looks like we've got a double top there. We've got bearish divergence on the 1 hour, on the stochastic, and on the RSI as well. So we'll probably see a bit of a pullback. There's also that evening star formation. And again, double top. This double top's different than the other ones because the second peak is higher than the first. But when that happens, we need to see the bearish divergence on the... Where is it? Where's my trend line? So there's our divergence because the chart is going one way and the momentum indicator is also going the other way. So it's on both of those indicators. So we've got that bearish divergence. Yeah, but again, like as I said, with the candles opening and closing on equal highs, and then again on the second peak. So very, very common for tops when you're looking at double tops and double bottoms. Look for those equal highs or equal lows of the open and close of those candles, and look for engulfing candles as well, like this one here. We could also put in a little bit of a trend line too, see if price is going to hold the current trend that it's putting in. Yeah, something like that. And then we've got key resistance area, pretty much where we are now, local level of resistance. Next one above that would be down here. And then the next one above that would be there. And we can also put some fibs. And then even go some short-term fibs as well. There's this one. Yeah, so 6180, that's kind of where we're rejecting off now. I took a long this morning on this, closed it out, and now have a short running. Okay, beautiful. Trading both sides of the market, that's what we like to see. All right. Damn, I inhaled my water. Right to my throat. All right. Cool. What do we have next? ETH. That's right. ETH. ETH USDT. Double bottom on ETH. Yeah, that looks like a better level. So we got the break and trend. So see here, break and trend. And as I said before, we get that break and trend. We want to make sure that we're actually breaking the horizontal level at the same time, because if we don't, we could just see a potential bounce off of that level and move back through the trend. Seds is bullish and Stella is bearish. Yeah. Yeah. Well, should I just plant myself in the middle then? I'll be neutral, and those guys can be bullish and bearish. All right. Where are we? Weekly. There's a nice bottom there, nice bottom of the range on the RSI. The stochastic is oversold. I don't know why that's there. Very, very oversold on the stochastic. Bullish div on the RSI. Nothing on the volume of significance, all of the stochastic for that matter. Maybe a little bit of bullish divergence on the stochastic as well. We are currently holding that level, but the market structure is still bearish and we have broken the trend line. We are currently holding that level as support. The momentum indicators are lowing out. They're kind of oversold. Ideally, I would like to see a strong daily close on this as a bullish engulfing. Haven't seen a lot of volume start to step in. At this level, there is a very, very small inverse head and shoulders there by the look of that. Looks a little bit better on the 1 hour. Again, very similar to what we saw on Bitcoin. There's that inverse head and shoulders. Maybe waiting to come back for that retest. Breakout target from the head to the neckline. Take that up. Whoops, wrong one. Take that up to the top. And that gives us sort of this range here. You just zoom out. Yeah, about there. Chuck our fibs on there as well. See where that lines up. Yeah, right about the 50 fib level is where we're pretty much looking for our breakout target. Trade-wise, if I was going to look for a long there, I need to start weighing up whether it's worth the risk to reward if we do get the retracement. So probably have my stop loss down there. Take profit just shy. Yeah, there'd be at least a 2-to-1. I could even, I mean, ideally, you'd want to have your stop loss below your previous structure, like right here, to account for any potential like fake outs, liquidity grabs. But for me, if you're going to start getting candle closes below here, you've invalidated your inverse head and shoulders setup anyway. Otherwise, I've been looking to break up my orders, so I'll have an order there, another order there, and then a, whoops, slightly lower than that, another order there, and then I have another order there, and then I can add my stop loss somewhere down around there, and give me a much better risk reward. Yeah, so in the short term, he's starting to make some moves. I still want to see significant candlestick structure start to come through at this level. I want to start to see bullish engulfings. The stochastic being bottomed out where it is, I mean, it can be a pretty good sign, but keep in mind, like, this is the daily time frame, right? We bottomed out here and we pushed up to the top of the range, and we only actually really moved 15%, as opposed to some of these real big swings that we've had when prices bottomed out on the stochastic. In this instance, we've only had a very small move. So I wouldn't necessarily be looking for all-time highs here just yet on ETH. I'll be looking for the small trade setups and see how price reacts once we hit resistance. Thanks, Dungy. Thanks for jumping on the call, mate. See you around. All right, is anyone got any other assets they want to take a look at? Because I'm going to be here all night. I'm working night shift tomorrow, so I got like 6 hours. All right, what should we take a look at? What should we take a look at? Ring dash. Wrong one. No? Oh. And what? There's no perpetuals for it. Surely. Oh, yeah, there we go. Similar setup. Very similar setup by the look of that. Looks like we've got good breakout from that descending trend line. So the trend is kind of starting to change. Looks like we're putting in a higher low, which is a good sign. Momentum is looking the same. Volume's looking good. So what do you look like? Yeah, nothing to rave about here on the weekly apart from the stochastic being bottomed out. But yeah, the daily definitely doesn't look too bad. What I might do there. Supply or resistance, and then our support. We've got a little bit of a support here, or localized support there. So I want to put my support close where price is currently trading, where it's currently holding up. So you can see it's holding up here. $4 hour, what are we working with? Yeah, not looking too bad. We have moved a little bit up off that support for my liking. So ideally, I'd like to see price maybe retrace back, put in a bit of a double bottom, and then look to catch the next move up. Which could potentially be 15, 16% move. But yeah, not really looking to trade it where it is just yet. There could be a potential retracement starting to come through here. It's a trend line breakout. It's a little bit of a, well, Bitcoin's going off. So we must be retesting that neckline on Bitcoin for the inverse head and shoulders. Same with this, you probably wait till price comes back to here to retest. See what happens when price gets there. But yeah, if you can start to hold that structure, continue to print higher highs and higher lows, come back and get a strong back test, put in some bullish candlestick formations, and you can start to potentially look at jumping into position up to the next resistance. But we need to be mindful of what Bitcoin's doing. So we'll go back to Bitcoin, have a look at what our inverse head and shoulders looks like. Oops, that's the wrong chart. That's not the one I had before. I think it was that one. Yep. So yeah, we're starting to approach the top of that range, right? But we could still retrace all the way back down into this range. And I don't necessarily want to just jump into a position just because price is retracing to a level with the expectation that we're going to get a bounce. Ideally, I want to come down to the smaller time frames, the 5, the 15-minute, and I want to actually see how price reacts to that level. Do we start to get strong buying support come in once it approaches? Do we start to put in reversal patterns, double bottoms? What do the momentum indicators look like? Are they starting to bottom out? So all of these sort of things I'm weighing up and considering as price approaches those levels. Now that price has started to reverse, I can actually run my fibs from the bottom of this move to the top, and I can start to align these retracement levels with key points on the neckline here. So you can see the 382 lines up with the top of this head and shoulder, where the bottom of the head meets the right shoulder. So I can start targeting that as a potential retracement, wait for price to come down, see how it reacts. Also, keep in mind the US is going to be awake in a couple of hours, and it will be a market Monday. No, it won't. What's today? Tuesday. No, that was today. It will be Tuesday, but quite often they can have their false move Mondays. So something to be mindful of. Often they can move the market in a false direction on a Monday, and then they correct it sort of midweek, usually around about Wednesday, Thursday. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen. The US is pretty tricky with their market opens at the moment. I've seen them completely push price in one direction, get everyone nice and excited, and then just smack it down within the next half-hour candle. All right, so that's render. That's pretty much us, Bitcoin, sorry, with the inverse head and shoulders. So that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for that retest, waiting to see if it holds. Now, if Bitcoin decides to hold here with this inverse head and shoulders, then that could provide a good opportunity for alts to go on a little bit of rally. We could also have a look at the USDT.D dominance to see what that looks like. Now, if this is looking bearish, then Bitcoin's likely going to be bullish. And we can see prices starting to roll over. We've got a bit of a double top there. We've got bearish divergence on the stochastic, on the RSI. Stochastic and RSI bearish divergence were starting to come down. We need to be mindful of where those next key retracement levels are. Potentially putting in a lower high here, so that could be another indicator. We're topped out on the stochastic on the daily as well. And the volume is starting to sort of come down. So these are all things that we can stack up as an extra layer of confirmation. USDT dominance going down, Bitcoin goes up. I also like to set alerts on the USDT dominance, because once it approaches key levels, if that alert's going off and I'm in positions, then I know, okay, well, I want to keep a close eye on the market here, because I want to see how price is going to react to this level. And depending on how it does react to that level will depend on whether or not I look at taking profits on my trade or closing out my position, and things like that. So alerts can be very, very helpful in helping you to alert you to investigate certain levels at the right time. The other one we can have a look at is the others dominance. Now, I'm not liking the look of this particularly too much, because we're essentially got a little bit of a bear flag here. However, this could just be a consolidation and could potentially turn into some sort of accumulation. We're not going to know until we get a confirmed break. 1, 2. Yeah, that's 1, 2. Third move. I mean, these are getting lower highs, which isn't ideal. So that's kind of increases the probability that we're going to break to the downside as well. And again, we're outside of that trend line. So one thing to watch out for. Really, the only thing that's holding us up is this horizontal support level just here. I could see if the market's going to roll over, we could potentially come all the way down to here and then play out this big wedge formation. The others chart, very, very similar sort of structure. And we got this massive double top with bearish divergence that played out. So if you were looking at altcoins and looking at trading altcoins and you were charting this chart and you saw that big bearish divergence, even on the stochastic as well, you probably would have been looking to maybe take some profits on your altcoin positions about here. Especially seeing as you were topped out at the previous all-time high as well with that big bearish divergence. We are kind of below this support area now. And there's not really a lot holding us up except for this trend line at the moment. On the weekly, on the daily, yeah, very similar to a lot of setups. It looks like we're starting to put in a higher low. However, we're not seeing that buying pressure come in just yet. That might come in once the US starts to wake up. We might start to see a little bit of buying momentum, but it's just a wait and see at this stage. Oops. The other one we can look at is the total 3. Now, I remember charting this on one of our Sunday sessions with the crew, and we were looking at this big sort of cup and handle pattern that we had. So here's our cup, here's our handle. We got the break. We haven't actually met the breakout target just yet. but now we've come back down to back test as support. And we're kind of in the do or die phase realistically for this, because breaking below the neckline after having broken out would be an invalidation for that potential pattern. So as long as we're holding just above this zone, we're all good. But if we come back down below that and start to close and hold candles below, then it decreases the probability of that pattern playing out like a cup and handle essentially. There is the possibility that you get some sort of like liquidity grab to the downside and then push up again. But ideally, you don't want to see price start to close below that neckline. Otherwise, it could ruin how the trade performs as far as the cup and handle pattern goes. We are sitting just below that confluence level of the 261.80 fibs. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. We do have a hidden bullish divergence. So you've got price trending up, and then you've got your equal lows or slightly lower low on the stochastic. So something to be aware of. Ideally, I'd like to see something like this, price hold and start to push up, come out, and then push up again. But there is still the possibility we could do something like this and then come back up. Another one we just need to wait to see, really. No use trying to guess. Guessing will just get you hurt 9 times out of 10. US 500 is another one we can look at, positively correlated with the crypto market generally. We are currently sitting on this trend line support, holding that. We do have a nice green volume candle there, holding at that level, and also a higher low. Higher low is the same on the momentum indicators. Weekly, massive bearish divergence, which appears to have actually played out. And we are still holding this trend line. So for our nothing really much to rave about on the 4 hour. Again, we're just waiting to see if we can get a confirmed double bottom essentially. And that double bottom's not confirmed until we get a neckline break and a retest. Okay. Now, one thing I really, really don't like about the US 500, and I've been watching this for months and months and months now. We've got massive bearish divergence with the price, with the RSI. We got the stochastic RSI in the oversold region. Overbought region. And the other thing that really, really intrigues me is the fact that this move here, where we topped out, had some of the highest trading volume that we're seeing. We had the sell-off in the retracement, and the retracement took us to almost as low a volume as we've had since its entire time, like since the US 500's been around, essentially. So even after this next run up, we're producing new all-time highs, but the volume isn't respecting that move. And volume needs to confirm the move, because if volume's not confirming the move, then it's a sign of low market participation and it increases the probability of a reversal. Now, I'm a firm believer that the US 500 is being held up by a limited number of stocks. So mainly your tech stocks, your things like Meta, Nvidia especially because of all the stuff they're doing with AI. I think that there's a very limited number of companies that are actually holding it up. And if they didn't have those companies holding them up, you'd probably see the US 500 crash. Um, Everyone's always been in the mindset that you'll never outperform the US 500. That if you want to make a safe investment, you invest in the US 500 and it'll pretty much outperform almost every single day trader because that's what it's always done. Um, People said the same thing about the housing market. The housing market's never going to go down. So look what happened in 2008. We had the global financial crisis where the housing market crashed. So something I'm kind of considering is why are we printing all-time highs on the US 500 on some of the lowest volume we've ever had, whilst also putting in lower highs on the volume? And it's been stagnated. So we've had this massive rally and it's basically just gone sideways on some of the lowest volume we've had. We're at the top of the range on the stochastic and we haven't had a decent retracement yet. We topped out on the RSI in the overbought region. We're starting to come back a little bit. Haven't quite come back to the 50, but where's the correction? And even with the column volume down here, you can see how low that volume's been on this entire move. Why? We have to ask ourselves why. So definitely something pretty sketchy. It's something I'm keeping a very, very close eye on. And I suggest you do too. Keep a very, very close eye on what the US 500 is doing, because the rest of the market is going to move with the US 500. DXY, I don't really worry about the DXY too much now with regards to crypto. It's not very strongly correlated with Bitcoin, in my opinion. I find that the USDT dominance is much better correlation because it has almost an exact one-to-one or inverse correlation to Bitcoin. So I find that as a much stronger correlating asset than say something like the DXY, because the DXY often loses its correlation with Bitcoin. So you'll see the DXY pump or it'll dump and Bitcoin won't really do anything. And then other times it'll move quite drastically. So it's too inconsistent for me. So I don't really use it in my analysis. But yeah, really personal preference. Jana, hip to hit the hay. Thanks for the call. Open heaps. Yep. Awesome. Glad you guys have learned some stuff. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Hopefully you all got some value out of the call while I've been running my mouth and drawing scribbles on the screen. Ondo was one that I was looking at as well. I know Matt Setier actually shared this with the Empire students in the chat, looking at this descending wedge formation, something like that. I would not be surprised if we come back to sweep the lows, sweep the liquidity down there before we see any sort of move. I am, however, keeping a very, very close eye on it where it's sitting currently. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we sweep the lows before we make any sort of significant move up. Keep in mind, it's usually retail that are looking for patterns like this, retail patterns. And they are great because just with these two trend lines, descending trend lines, you're just showing a period of consolidation where price is getting squeezed. But although trend lines can be very good for establishing the trend, act as very good levels of support and resistance, I think that the horizontal levels are a much stronger confirmation level, right? So having those horizontal levels is much better to base your entries and your exits off, in my opinion, which is why I think, because we're kind of in the middle of these two order blocks, why I think that we could actually come to the downside to sweep the lows before moving upwards. A lot of institutional traders as well, they don't really trade based off of trend lines. They look for more liquidity zones and horizontal levels as well. So just keep that in mind. It's only really retail traders that are looking at these pattern setups. And institutional investors and market makers know that, and they will try and exploit it if they can. So go back and have a look at Bitcoin and see what Bitcoin's doing. BTC USD. So, yeah. Yeah, so it does look like price is starting to hold at that level for now on the 5 minute. So there is a little bit of a bounce there, so that's positive. We are at the bottom of the range. Looks like could be starting to put in a little bit of a higher low, double bottom there. So that's positive. But candle hasn't closed yet, so no confirmation. 15-minute. We are still below the 236 though. So I think while we stay below that, there is a probability that we could come back to the 3.8 soon. Bitcoin. Is there I want to hear from people in the chat. What assets have you got your eye on at the moment? Well, here's a better one actually. What's everyone's favorite asset to trade? Right. And please don't say like Timu or something. NA's not looking too bad. Starting to put in a little bit of a higher high there. So it's not looking too foul on ENA. And it is near the bottom of the range. So that could potentially be a good little setup there. Let's have a look at the 4-hour. Yeah, 4-hour doesn't look too bad. We've got a lower low, lower than this previous low here. So we'll look for some divergence. See if we can get some divergence. Yeah, there's a bit of bullish divergence on the stochastic. Nothing on the RSI though. But we are holding that support or order block there, which is a good sign at the moment on the 4-hour. The daily, nothing to rave about here on the daily, really. Let's get rid of all that nonsense. Should we just clear the stock chart? We are holding the range quite well within this area. There's a nice little inverse head and shoulders there that played out last time. Let's just jump back, have a look at Bitcoin, see what that's up to. Yeah, holding quite nicely on ENAD. That's looking pretty good for the time being. What's the CRB up to? This is another one I was looking at. CRB. Another nice little inverse head and shoulders setup we got here, or little inverse head and shoulders setup. So we got our left shoulder, our head, and our potential right shoulder here. So that's a pretty good setup. And we're putting in that higher low too, which is what I like to see. And the higher high as well. So this high, higher than this high. That's what I like to see. We can also look to see where price bounce from using our Fibonacci retracement. So we can go from the bottom of the move to the top of the move. And you can see we bounce right off that golden fib ratio, the 6180 fib right there. So that's what we like to see. The ideal entry, again, would have been down around here somewhere once we got the bullish candlestick formations on the lowering timeframes. Remember, this is on the daily. Entering now would be considered very, very high risk because we do have the top of that order block just sitting right above us. So to long here, we'd be longing straight into resistance. So now we want to potentially wait for a pullback, look for a bit of a pullback, or wait for the break, wait for the retest, catch the next move up. Breakout target, we've been looking at a move, measured move up to just below this order block. How's that look on the weekly? I wonder. Yeah, on the weekly, it's a bit all over the place, really. But mind you, we did have this trend line break and retest, which is right where the inverse head and shoulders is sitting. So that's quite positive. We can see a strong change in trend. We actually do have the higher high, because it's higher than this high. Potential high low here, because it's higher than that low. Break in trend, retest, good volume candles coming out of that break in trend as well, which is what we like to see. So that inverse head and shoulders is looking really, really good. Just need to wait for a good entry. I actually already took a long on this, but I took profits. I think I took profits around about here somewhere. Got in. When did I get in? There we go. I don't know if you guys can see that. Better. So that's 0.5031 entry. Yeah, cut it out on the camera because of the background remover. But yeah, 0.503, yeah, entry price. So 185% trade from 25x leverage. So I got in, where was it? Long position 0.5. Where are we? Entry. 3-1. And my exit price was 0.5404. And I have my stop loss just there. So nice little 2-to-1 trade there. 7% move. And yeah, I had 25x leverage. So what I'll be waiting for now is to see if price actually comes back and retrace. Could chuck some fibs on there if it does start to roll over here. Chuck some fibs from here up to there, and then start to look for retracements off of these key fib levels here. And I'll just watch to see how price reacts to each one of those levels. If it decides to bounce here and it bounces back up, comes back up, it might reject off the 6180. But I could always just wait for the breakout, wait for price to come back, and then look to trade the next move up. There's no sense in trying to jump into a long where it is right here, right now, because you've only got to move a little bit before you start to run into resistance. And if you're putting a stop loss where it should go below the previous structure around about the 6180 here, or potentially even lower, then yeah, you haven't got a very good risk to reward ratio. Would it be worth the trade setup, in my opinion? Lots of inverse head and shoulders, though, starting to come through, so that's good. Bitcoin showing that confirmed double bottom there. So we have got the double bottom. We've broken above on the neckline, and we're coming back to retest. We got good volume on the break at the neckline just there. So we're coming back for that retest. Interested to hear from you guys in the chat. What do you reckon? When the US wakes up, are we going to go up or are we going to go down? So the US going to let us have our rally, or are they going to basically do us over again and then just dump the market like they had been? What am I doing? right. So Bitcoin looks to be holding that neckline fairly well just now. Good stuff. Ondo, be interesting to see if Ondo holds up here. It isn't looking too bad on the 1 hour, I think. Very similar sort of, not quite an inverse head and shoulders yet, but it is showing similar structure. If we go back to where we see our V and see how we put in that left shoulder, we put in the head, and then we got that higher high. Now, that's kind of what we're starting to see on Ondo here. But we just haven't got that full-on structure of the right shoulder yet. There is a evening star here, so that's something to be mindful of. But yeah, we have got that higher high, which is a good sign. So potentially wait for price to come back maybe to here, maybe put in that shoulder. We could also chuck our Fibonacci tool on there, run from the bottom to the top, and start to see where those retracement levels line up. Look for a potential bounce at the 382, the 50, and the 6180 for the next move up. And put a couple of alerts there. NA, again, very, very similar. Got the higher high. Haven't got the full swing of that right shoulder just yet. Tons got bearish divergence, so it's actually looking like it might roll over here on the 4 hour. Right. What else can we have a look at? What charts haven't I looked at yet? Yeah, see, all of these ones are kind of moved already. Ideally, I don't want to look at assets that have moved too much, like EOS, that's pumped 10% already. Fog. The fog's moved like 7%. Not really interested in that. Zion, yeah, that's same again. Mask. So a lot of these assets have moved quite considerably. Mocha. Let's have a look at Sui. This one, Sui's moved about 5%, but I would like to keep a bit of an eye on it. Sui's been one that I've been watching for quite a while. I remember I took the short up here when we started to put in this double top and this ascending wedge pattern. We're starting to get massive bearish divergence this whole way up. Managed to get the short. And now because we're at key level of support, I'm looking for signs of strength for a potential reversal in the market. Ideally, I'd like to see price clear above this key resistance and hold, which we did here. We broke above, but we failed to hold on the retest. So I'd like to see price break above, hold on the retest, and then potentially look to jump into that long. And you can see I've got my targets mapped out for those measured moves. But yeah, I just need that confirmation first. No sense in jumping into a trade without confirmation. If you're basing your trades just off of signals, you're probably going to wind up getting wrecked. We want to trade confirmations, not signals, as traders. Trading signals is for gamblers. Weekly, yeah, that weekly wick got smashed. But we are load out on the stochastic on the weekly, which is a good sign. We're not quite load out on the RSI just yet. But again, we are retesting that what was previous all-time high. We are retesting that key level again as support. So would like to see SUI hold at this level if possible. What else have we got? SUI, Litecoin. Litecoin's a good one. So we'll start on the weekly, draw out our support zone, draw out our weekly resistance zone, preferably more of like a localized one if we can. There actually is a little bit of a localized support level here actually, so we might start with that. Get rid of that one. And then resistance, we'd say about there somewhere. Come down to, actually might put in a trend line. Trend line zone would be better. So we'll do that. Chuck in a zone. Go down to the daily. Daily appears to be holding that support level at the moment. It does look like a bear flag though. Breakout target for the bear flag is the length of the flagpole for the point of breakout. And actually, if I go back to where I had my first support level drawn out, yeah, so it looks like that bear flag's beginning to play out. There is a double top here as well. The neckline is here to the top. The measured move or breakout target for that from the point of breakout is very, very similar to what the breakout target is for that bear flag. So I would say that if we can't hold the support level here, then we are definitely going to be coming down to that next support level for our measured breakout target, measured move. But yeah, that is a very clear double top. And the breakout target for that hasn't been met yet. Bear flag, good bearish volume on the break. We're currently just being held up by that support level. If that fails and the trend line can't hold, we're going to be coming down to this area. So definitely one that I'll be watching out for. Let's see where the order block is on this. Yeah, big order blocks there on the daily, acting as support for the time being. Yeah, Litecoin. Not really doing a lot. If it can hold that level, that'd be great because then we can trade it up to the next level of resistance. So we can trade it up to here. But if it breaks, equally as good, we can just short it down to the bottom. So we just wait for confirmation. Wait on the lower time frame, see if we put in a bottoming structure, W double bottom. And then if we do, long up to the next point of resistance. If we lose this level of support, we'll just short it back down to the next level of support. Yeah, not really much happening on the 15. All right, go back to 30 for a quick minute. Yeah, bullish engulfing candle. So we got the bounce here. We got our little bullish engulfing candle, 50 to 60% retracement. So ideally, we'd want this to hold or close at sort of 50 to 60% and then push up for a continuation. Otherwise, if we close back below this fib level, then we're going to come back to the 382 most likely. What's the time? Oh yeah, so about another hour, the US will be up. Yeah, ruining everyone's fun. Ton. Yeah, ton's coming down. Nice reversal. Green lines, support. Probably worth putting a alert on there actually in case we get a nice little bounce. And we can even put one there as well. Get rid of that. Ooh, yuck. That looks horrible on the daily. We topped out on the RSI, topped out on the stochastic. Bearish div on the volume as well. On the volume versus price action. So yeah, that could come down. So ton is, I believe, Telegram coin. And I think the founder actually got a little bit of trouble with the law. Like most of these guys, CZ's no different. Two. Oh, what are you doing? Would actually like to put an alert on this down at this level. Get rid of those alerts. And I'll put one there. Total, what's total up to? Yeah, again, very, very similar structure to what we've seen on CRV. We've got the higher high. We haven't got the confirmed higher low yet. We're potentially just waiting for that swing if we are going to put in that inverse head and shoulders. But big evening star there, not ideal. Yeah, it looks to be holding on the 15 minutes so far. So we got that 50 to 60% retracement. As long as we can sort of close where we are now, you might get some sort of push up from there. I'll just be watching very, very carefully to see if we actually clear that previous candle open and close. See if we can actually recoup that level. Because failure to recapture that level, and we start to do this, and then we drop back down again, put in a double top. So you always want to be mindful of where your next key level of resistance are. So although we've got this order block up here, which is our next resistance, you've still got previous structure, which is going to act as your next resistance. So you always have to consider that as well. You got to zoom out and look at the overall picture. So we are looking pretty good here in terms of this inverse head and shoulders. We're coming back to retest. If we get the confirmed hold, then that increases the probability that this breakout target is going to be met. What you'll often see is a lot of traders that will trade the breakout. So they'll wait and they'll start to see candles moving and they'll go, oh, this is it. And they'll get an entry somewhere up around here. And that's not ideal. You want to be getting it when it pulls back somewhere within here. For our, yeah, see, I'm kind of liking that W double bottom on the 4 hour. It's not looking too bad. The other thing I'm looking at on this 4 hour time frame is, for Bitcoin is we've had this break in this order block, this break in support. We've come back up to retest. Now, generally, you get a break in a key level of support, you get 3 retests. So you get 3 hits to the high to retest as resistance. So here's your first one. You didn't quite touch the resistance. But one thing we're going to look out for here is on this move that's coming up now, do we actually manage to do what we've done here and get a higher high from this previous high? So do we manage to get a higher high up here? Would show strength. If we fail to do that and we actually put in a lower high, then there's a high probability we're going to actually roll over, come down. We might come up and have one more crack at it. And then if we put in another lower high, then we're probably going to get continuation to the downside. So watching this 15-minute now to see if we get a double bottom. All right. What else we got? What haven't I covered yet? Let's have a look at that one. or consolidation really. Bit of a consolidation. We should move your breakout, and we're coming back to retest that now. So Solana not looking too bad in the short term. Done our support. And yeah, back testing that, potentially coming back up. Put in our Fibonacci retracement from there to there. And we can see right about the 78.6 lines up with the top of that resistance. And the 6180 kind of around about when that trend line is. So I'd be targeting, if price manages to hold here, this could be a little bit of a horseshoe. Has the potential to move. So say target 1 will be there. And target 2. And then target 3. Yeah, around there somewhere. Ideally, I want to keep these just shy, so I'd actually move it just below the fib levels. Something like that. But we need to see price hold where it is. Very similar sort of structure to what Bitcoin had. We go on the weekly. Yeah, weekly we got that big double top. We kind of had this massive cup and handle pattern that has, technically it's invalidated, but it does look like you might still be holding trend from this move here. But because this is your neckline for your cup and handle, because you've had the breakout and you've actually re-entered, technically that cup and handle play now is invalidated. And you had that massive double top. Breakout target for that looks like it's been met. So as your breakout target from the neckline to the shed, and round about the 382. So it does look like that breakout target has been met. And it looks like price is currently holding sort of within this range. So there is a possibility that you could start to see a little bit of a push from here as long as Bitcoin decides to play the game. The rest of the market decides to play the game. Trump doesn't upset anyone with tariffs would be good too. You might see a little bit of movement in the up direction. But yeah, at the moment we are essentially just getting a little bit of a horseshoe play. So if this lower time frame support level doesn't hold, then you'll essentially just put in this. Quite common after a major drawdown, you get a break in a key level and then you get like a little bit of a horseshoe play. Usually you'll find that those horseshoe plays tend to retrace to like the 50 and the 6180 though. So just something to be mindful of. You just got to take the data as it comes, really. And remember, we have broken out of this wedge, ascending wedge. We are currently sitting at that low of that previous low. We haven't actually come back to take out that previous low there. And interesting, that low right there lines up with the 618 Fibonacci retracement as well. It's a monthly looking like. Yuck. The monthly's starting to get reset on the stochastic, which isn't too bad. Again, though, I mean, if you were sitting on the sideline about whether or not you should sell your Solana when price was up here, a good indication would have been this massive bearish divergence on the monthly. That's why I traditionally like to start my charts with the higher time frames first and work my way down to get an overall look of what the wider macro trend is doing, or the larger macro trend is doing. It's going to make you plan your trades out a little bit better. Ideally, you want to be trading with the trend, not against it. You want to be moving with the market makers and the institutions, not against them, because you're never going to outtrade them, because I've got a lot more liquidity to play with than you do. So all you can do is figure out how they move, what setups they're looking for, and try and move with them and scoop up some liquidity for yourself. A lot of people were expecting new all-time highs on Bitcoin. Pretty much the entire market was bullish. You go on social media and everyone was saying, oh, yep, 125K Bitcoin coming next. And Trump had just been inaugurated, so that was bullish news. But then it didn't quite have the same effect as it did when he was elected. So that was their expectation, right? So expectation doesn't always equal causation. So there was the expectation that the market was going to perform bullishly because that's what happened when Trump got elected, because they saw that as bullish for the market. Then there was all the talks of the strategic reserve and things like that. Oh, that's got to be bullish for the market, having a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. But then guys like Jerome Powell come out and they say, well, actually the Fed's not allowed to hold Bitcoin. There's a lot of legal loopholes that they had to go through in order to make that achievable. So it's something that wasn't going to happen overnight. So there's all these rumors, everyone's building up all this hype towards this very, very bullish scenario. You go on Twitter, all forms of social media, and everyone's thinking the same thing. They're all got the same narrative. Market's bullish. Everyone's got the same sentiment. You look at the Fear and Greed Index. The sentiment was that the market was still in the greed phase. We had a 15% drawdown on Bitcoin, and the market sentiment was still in the greed phase. So I remember saying to the Empire students that the market needs to reset, the sentiment needs to reset. We need to at least go back to the fear phase before we can see any new all-time highs, because otherwise that bull run's not going to be sustainable. And then that's when we saw this big double top starting to play. I was saying that the market sentiment needed to be reset when we were here. Price came down, we bounced up. Everyone's like, yep, new all-time highs coming in. But the entire time that this price was moving up, the volume wasn't supporting the move. So if the volume's not supporting the move, it increases the probability of a reversal because it's a sign of low market participation. Then what happened? We ended up putting in that double top. And everyone who was calling for new all-time highs would have got a little bit of a humbling, as we like to call it, when the market started to dip. Because the entire time that Bitcoin has been moving up like this, everyone has been buying the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip. Now, for the market sentiment to reset, we need to completely shift the retail view on the buy the dip mindset. So we need to reset them back into the greed phase. So price dip down here, they buy the dip, came up here, they buy the dip around here again, and then we shot all the way through. We got this huge whip to the downside on this candle here, buy the dip, price shot up, but this was just your typical suckers rally. Large institutions and large traders can't dump their bags all at once, so they shock the market, supply back in the other direction, and then they dump the rest of the bags on retail, which is exactly what they did here. Retail still in the buy the dip mindset, and they got shat on. They got absolutely shat on with this move here. Big wick to the upside, boom. Massive volume, downside, close out, confirm double top, and reach the breakout target. And I was calling these targets the 0618 right from the get-go. Before this was even a double top. Once we just reached here, I was calling double top here. 0.618 trend-based fib extension retracement, because that area there lined up with a key order block. We also had the 5-wave impulsive structure. Is our 5-wave impulsive structure. What usually follows with that, our corrective wave, our A, B, C corrective. And we got the retracement down to there. So you just got to trade the data that's in front of you and try and remove your bias. Try not to be so heavily influenced with people on Twitter. Usually if everyone's singing from the same song sheet, the market makers and institutions are going to take advantage of that. Because if everyone's expecting the same thing, it's a perfect opportunity to take advantage of everyone else in the market. And usually by the time you're able to establish a pattern, is when the pattern actually gets exploited. All right, what's our time looking like? We still got about 45 minutes until the US market wakes up. Okay. Yep, see Bitcoin's coming down to that 382. So we want to see how's price going to react when it comes to that level. So we still haven't seen the strong buying support come in yet, the strong structure. The structure never held on this. We didn't quite have the volume. We didn't put in the W double bottom that we like to see. Ideally, we like to see structure like this. Let's see nice double bottoms. There's a double bottom there. This is technically a double bottom. That's technically a double bottom, a very ugly one. But all we're looking for is that change in market structure. There's another example here, double bottom. Another one, double bottom. Double bottom. And these happen all the time. Market structure. You'd be surprised how effectively you can actually trade with just simple market structure and support and resistance. Like horizontal support and resistance. Trend lines are great for establishing the trend. They can act as good levels of support and resistance, like you can see here as well. But most institutional players don't really look at angular trend lines and things like that. They're more interested with like key liquidity areas and order blocks and things like that. So I don't put too much weight on trend lines by themselves. I like to have lots of correlating signals and confirmations. Get rid of that. It's making it hard to see. So yeah, we are getting a nice little bounce just above the 382. Which is a good sign. It means that buyers are slowly starting to step in at that level. We can have a look down here. We're starting to put in bullish divergence as well on the RSI and also on the stochastic and on the volume. So that's a really good sign at the moment. There's our bullish divergence. And because price is going down. So bullish divergence off of the key fib level, which is also a level of confluence with the neckline. is a good indication for now. Keep in mind it's only the 5-minute time frame, so the lower time frames aren't going to have as strong a conviction as the higher time frames. So you do need to take that into consideration when you are looking for your confirmations. But we need to wait for candle closes. We need to wait for confirmed structure before we actually enter into any positions, because otherwise we're just guessing or hoping for the best. Even though it looks like it's going to be an inverse head and shoulders because all the structure's there, this could very, very easily just be a lower high from this high here and come straight back out. Chuck a little trend line in there too for good measure. NA, same. CRV coming down, retracing as well. Ton came all the way down at that key order block level, bounce. And we could see that was going to happen though, because we had that bearish divergence. See, bearish divergence there on the 1 hour, bearish divergence on the RSI, bearish divergence on the stochastic. And then we also had this big bearish divergence from this move here. And down here on the RSI. And actually the same on the volume as well. Still holding up on that 4-hour order block though. But we are topped out on the stochastic. And the RSI, so a retracement is very, very likely. So we could see price come all the way down to here. There, just down there. All right. Well, we've probably got about another 40 minutes before the market opens in the US. So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to cut the stream there for now, and I'll likely jump back on in the next 40 minutes or so, and we'll see what happens once the US market opens. But yeah, thanks to all of you who taking the time to jump on the stream. Hope you guys all learned something, took away something valuable. Please like and subscribe if you want to jump on some more of these live calls. I'm going to try and do these regularly for you guys. So thank you very much. I'll cut the stream there and probably jump back on in the next 40 minutes. Cheers, team.